Hey everyone, this is James Moffett, Anna Murby, Keith Murby, her husband, and Katie Moffett, my wife of 36 years. Thank you for joining us. Mark Osborne of the Valiant Forge podcast is joining us today as a friend. So anyway, I was going to tell everybody that we have a new YouTube channel called Front Porch Discussions, and all of our videos will be uploaded to the Front Porch Discussion YouTube channel, and we would like to ask you to listen to them, subscribe, follow, and tell all your friends and family and coworkers and people you go to church with. Anybody and everybody. Just tell everybody about the YouTube podcast called Front. So having said that, thank you for being here. And everybody that's in the studio, thank you for being here. And we have special guests. Our spouses have joined us, except for Mark's wife. I don't think she wanted to be on camera with him for some reason, but maybe you can convince her to join us at some point. And because you're really not a bad guy, I really like you, and I think you're just a wonderful person. And I don't know why she wouldn't want to be on camera with you. But
You're
anyhow,
making me
that's for
blush.
discussion for another day. So we have a topic for discussion this evening. I'm not letting the cat out of the bag. We'll leave it in there. Just speaking of
Cat
cats, I
walked
think
by.
I just saw one walk by Katie's chair,
Yes.
and there will
It heard
probably
about you
be
putting it in a bag and it ran off.
we'll
It
probably
wasn't
probably
scripted.
see
It was perfect,
several.
though.
There's
again.
JoJo. There another guest appearance. So anyway, we'll leave the cat in the bag and say that Mark has come up with some questions, some newlywed type questions that he's going to ask our spouses, and he already has Anna and my answers to these questions, and we'll see if we can get some heated, some animated discussions going about the answers and how close we got to one another. So Mark, without
Yeah.
further ado, it's all yours.
Well, I figured since your guys are going to have your spouses on, I would ask you guys marriage questions. We don't want to call them newlywed questions because none of us are newlyweds, right? Not technically.
Correct.
So I've already asked James and Anna these questions, and you guys give the answers, and then we'll pick a winner, or this will be like a participation trophy kind of thing. When you're driving somewhere new, who is more likely to argue with the GPS voice because they know a better way, and who actually ends up being right? Katie, you go first.
Neither one of us argues with GPS, but James always claims to be right.
James's answer is, our issue is that Katie wants to go someplace new, but never gets the address so I can put it in the GPS. Neither one of us argues with the GPS.
But see, that's his job, is to look it up first. That happened the other night. We went to go see our son.
See, James, you got to do your job.
How is it my job? I don't
You're
get that.
driving. You're driving.
That's my job is to drive. It's your
Just
job
look it
to
up first.
give me the address and put it in the GPS.
All
Anyway,
right, Keith.
Definitely me. I'm definitely arguing with the GPS person, regardless of what voice it is. Some of them irritate me more than others because they think they know it all, but I know best. I know which way it should be taking me, and I'll argue it. I'll be like, why is it taking me this way? But I'll figure it out, and a lot of times I say, no, just turn it off. I'm going to go this way, and I'm usually right. The GPS is wrong.
I'm kind of with you. Keith, Anna said Keith would argue with the GPS only because he sometimes knows a better way than what it was given, or it wasn't the correct directions for the specific way he wanted to go. So pretty much the exact answer you gave.
we have a winner. Ding, ding, ding.
Well, you guys were both right, actually.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
directionally challenged, so I'm never going to question the chat GPT. Well, that either.
The chat
But
GPS.
I won't question the GPS because I'll get lost even when the GPS gives me directions sometimes.
Me too.
So, yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. It'll tell me where to go and I'll miss this spot. I'm like, how did I just do that? So,
Yeah,
Well, it
but
doesn't run
sometimes
like-
that GPS. Go ahead.
The directions for me, like it comes natural, but for my brother now, you would think it's in the same blood. But I remember when we were like 18, we're driving down to Six Flags in New Jersey, and I realized, why is the sun on my right side when it should be on my left? Because we left early in the morning. And, coming from Connecticut, when you're driving down, the sun rises in the east. So the sun should always be on your left side. I realized the sun's on our right. And I said, Tom, what'd you do? I don't know. I took a sign. I took this way. We're heading north up New York State somewhere. I'm like, this is before we all had like GPSs and everything like that. But Yeah, he didn't even realize with the sun.
Wow. That's pretty observant. I don't know if I would have caught that the sun was on the other side of the car. Very cool. So, question 2, titled The Thermostat War. If I walked into your house right now, what temperature is the thermostat set to, and who was the last person to stealthily change it when the other wasn't looking? Katie,
I'd say he probably did it. I try
what
not
would
to
it be
mess
at?
with it too much.
Do you know the temperature?
Probably 74.
James says we generally keep it between 75 and 76, and we both agree as to what the temperature should be. Keith?
Well, I let Anna do we have one of those turn on, turn off certain times that comes on. She has it set for a certain time and it will come on. I usually don't mess with it, I think, unless I think when it gets warmer, I'll shut it off because she'll be freezing up until July. And it's like, no, it's July, babe. We can shut the heat off now. We don't need the heat on anymore. No, I mean, she pretty much controls it. I very seldom will touch it unless the furnace goes out on us, and then of course I got to try to fix it. But she's in control, and it usually stays around 72, whatever it is around there.
Anna says, I'm always cold. I have the thermostat set to 75 during the days. Sometimes when it's warmer, Keith might turn it off because it's warm, and I forget to set it back when it gets colder in the evenings.
He's sneaking in
75.
75.
I would be boiling at 75.
Now I got to watch. Thought you had it programmed.
No, I do have a program. It only goes to 75 from early morning until 11 o'clock. Then I have it set to either 70 or 72. And then it stays that way until
I get home.
around 5.
then
And then it goes up again to 75 because it's getting it ready for nighttime when I turn it back to 68 for the evening.
How does one
Wow.
stealthily change the temperature?
You do what he's done a few times. You just go over there and you turn it off because, like you said, sometimes it gets hot and, it's a nice day. We're going to open the windows. Let's shut it off. And then he forgets to turn it back on. And I'm like, oh, why is it like super cold in here? And then we look and it's like 60 degrees. I was like, did you forget to turn this back on?
I got these
To me,
questions from
stealthy
AIs.
To me, stealthy would be if you had the internet connected thermostat that you can control on your telephone. So I would set it to one setting, and then Katie would be over in her recliner setting it to another setting.
Or
That
you
would
put
be
on all your
stealthy.
black clothes and the Mission Impossible music is playing.
That's right.
And walk over to the
That'd be
thermostat.
fun.
Katie likes
The
it much
leftover-
warmer than I do.
Women get colder. I guess it's a thing.
My wife and I are kind of opposite. I'm the one that's
Yeah.
always cold, and she wants it turned down. She's going through a change in life right now, though, so that's part of the reason.
Yep. That'll do it.
Good old hormones are cranking up the heat.
Yep. The leftover mystery. If there is one slice of pizza or brownie or whatever left in the fridge, does it stay there for 3 days because you're both being polite, or does it vanish 10 minutes after the lights go out? James gets it. James' answer was leftovers usually sit in the fridge until it turns into a science project.
No. The grapes went by real fast.
Those grapes were not, those are a snack. Those were not leftovers. Leftovers are things, let's classify what a leftover is, and you can re-answer. The leftovers is like the skillet that has hamburger helper in it, and the glass lid looks like it's growing its own oxygenated atmosphere because there's bubbles all on top of it and you can't see what's in the skillet. Then when you take the skillet lid off, everything's green because you're creating a science project.
It's never
Yeah.
been that way.
Nice.
You wouldn't eat leftovers anyway unless I sent it to you for lunch. It wouldn't look like that.
Look, we got another
I see a
guest.
little one.
Yes, there's a
that.
little one. Sweet. Who's that? She's gonna hide. Who are those people, Mommy?
All right. Well, let's see. I'm going to say that for the food thing, I usually will eat whatever's in there. I don't like wasting food, but a lot of times the food does get wasted if it's something that we both like. But I'm usually the one that will gobble it down or whatever it's in there. Or we'll feed to the squirrel outside. I dish it out into the tree.
Anna said Keith is usually good about asking if something is spoken for. I usually would be the one to hoard food or sneak a snack.
Well, if it's something good, like, yeah.
I'll
chocolate
sneak
cake or
chocolate or
chocolate, yeah.
something so the kids don't ask me for it or something. Huh, Ronan? This is Ronan, by the way, our youngest son.
Hey, Ronan.
Hi,
Can
Ronan.
you
Hi,
say hello
Ronan.
to everybody?
Hi.
I wrote it.
Yeah, you know who that is. The Minions, huh?
Minions.
Minions.
All right, I'll see your sisters, okay?
Nope.
I knew you wouldn't
I
like
don't
that
want to see
movie.
them.
You don't want to
Here's
see
another
them?
one.
Okay.
What?
Look,
It's a tiny
who's-
one.
Who's that? Is that Bob? It's not Bob?
Who is it?
I don't know. Who is it?
you don't know?
It's not
Minion.
Bob. Who is it?
Minion.
So cute how I said it.
How old is he?
All righty. Well, we were all over
He's
the board on
3.
those answers.
It's free.
Yes, you're 3.
Okay.
Go see
I
your
got 2
sisters.
more.
Cute.
No.
The grocery store habit. When your spouse goes to the store for just one thing, like milk, how many extra times do they usually come home with? How many extra items do they usually come home with?
Would you ask for me first?
Katie first.
Well, when we were just dating and James went with me to the store, we just wanted a couple of little things to eat, and he spent $60. Back then I was single, so I didn't have a lot of money. So he spent $60 in one shot, and I never spent that much in even a month. Now we do Instacart usually or Walmart, but if I send him in for something, he usually comes. Now he's gotten better about just getting what he was supposed to get. He's gotten better about that.
That's
Look
good,
at
James.
that.
You're maturing. He said, Katie always has a list, and I am the one going to the store for one item and then wind up with 15 or 20 items.
Well, I'd have to say that if I go to the store, I usually start seeing things that I like and like, oh yeah, we could use these. What's in
James
the
does that.
basket? Fruit, we need this, put that in there. But lately she's been going, but and she'll do the Walmart too, the ordering things online, which makes it a lot easier. But yeah, definitely if I go in, I'm coming out with more than what we need. She's good with sticking to we only need this. Don't forget, we only need bread. Just go in there for bread. But I'll come out with some donuts and whatever, and muffins.
Donuts and muffins.
It's because the only way
Her-
us
her.
men get what we want is if we go shopping ourselves. We forget that budget. Yeah, who cares about that budget? Let's just get what we want to eat and drink.
Anna's answer was Keith is usually the one who come home with more things than what he wanted. I do it too sometimes, but it's usually him. All right, this is a podcaster type question. Katie, when James is podcasting, what is the one household sound or outside sound that will always seem to ruin a perfect take?
The dogs making noise, barking. Usually.
He said there are no sounds from the house, but maybe outside noise from kids playing in the street or people mowing grass.
He always makes sure I take care of the dogs so they don't ruin his take.
Yeah, I have to tell my wife to make sure her phone is on silent and not to talk to Alexa because it just comes right through every time.
I'd have to say with the little ones banging on the door, especially this guy right here, he'll smash into the door and just come barging in.
Now he knows how to open the door, so he doesn't even have to do that.
I think you guys were all 100% for the most part.
Nice.
So let's ask the tiebreaker question, which is, I can't find. Here we go. Who is this official spider catcher / killer?
James.
Yeah, he said he is. Keith?
Oh, she won't even go near. Oh, kill it.
Spider catcher.
Oh, spider catcher?
Yeah.
I would say let it be. Let it just sit there because I'd rather have the spiders eating the ants and the gnats. Let them spin their thing. She's like, oh, they're going to crawl on me. But she'll want to, if I catch them, I'll just catch them, put them outside. But she'll kill it.
Yep, that was exactly her answer. Kill, then it's me. If it's catch and release, then it's Keith. So while we're waiting for James, I'll tell a funny story about my wife. When we first got married, she's like deathly afraid of spiders. She sees them on the TV. She starts to freak out. So when we first got married, I worked a block away from where we lived. I came home from lunch. She's up on the couch with her feet on the couch with a bowl in the center of the living room. And she's going, kill it, kill it, kill it. There was a spider. And I was like, you had the guts to go over and trap it. You couldn't just step on it.
Nice. Yeah. Occasionally I'll leave them alone, but if they are a certain size, I'll kill it. We get some big ones, and it's hard to tell if they're brown recluse or if they're wolf spiders, so I don't play around with that. But the other ones, I kind of just leave them alone. All right, sir. I'll be right back.
All right,
That's
James,
all.
that's the end of the questions.
I think we ended in a tie.
Yeah, can't hear you, James. I hear you talking. I see you talking.
Okay, how's that?
There you
I said
go.
Better.
the
You're in.
only type of spiders that I don't like are the ones that drop onto your head uninvited. That's when you become a kung fu master. So what was the scoring?
It was
Were we all?
Tie.
There
right
was a
down the
tie?
middle.
All
You
right.
guys are
Very
perfect
good.
couples.
Yeah, that's us. All right. So moving right along. Is there anything anybody wants to talk about before we get into tonight's topic?
Nope.
Anything happened this week that was worthy of talking about? Something positive, something negative, something meh? No?
Talk about our
No,
floor.
not really.
No, not really.
I want to forget that.
I asked him if he wanted to talk about our floor situation I told you guys about, and he's like, no, I want to forget about that.
The floor is still there, right? Still there. All right. So tonight's topic, I guess I'll let the cat out of the bag now, is boundaries. And we're talking about parenting adult children, which is ages of 18 to 30. And I think everybody here amongst us has at least one. We have two. Of course, that's not a competition. It's just the way it is. But
Yeah. My
Kate,
daughter's 30, just turned 32, my youngest.
okay, well, that works too. 32 is just under the wire. So Katie is a special education teacher with about 25 years of experience, and she is the parenting guru between the two of us. And even though I have a podcast called ABCs of Parenting Adult Children, and I do talk to a lot of parenting experts, psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists of all sorts, coaches, life coaches, ad nauseum. So I've learned quite a bit in the last couple, 2 or 3 years about that. But I think the topic we're going to speak about tonight is boundaries and how that affects us as parents, as well as how it affects our interaction with our adult children.
Mhm.
I'll ask the experts a question if I can. How do we create boundaries with our adult children? Is it a conversation or just something just kind of happens over time?
Katie,
I don't know.
you set boundaries all the time in that classroom, don't you?
That's
Or
different.
do you
That's
have,
teenagers.
or do you have to? Well, that's true. They're not adult children. Katie
They're
has
not
to use
adults yet.
Katie has to use duct tape and baling wire to hold those teenagers in their chair. But anyway, no, it doesn't just automatically happen. It doesn't happen through metamorphosis of some kind. Boundaries happen because we sit down with our adult child and we respect their wishes to a certain degree. In other words, one of their boundaries may be, don't just come barreling into my room without knocking, right? Because something may be going on that I don't necessarily want you to be privy to. They may be undressed, or they may be in the act of dressing or undressing, and they would prefer that you allow them to finish that process before you just come barreling into their room
Space.
and their space, because they have a right to privacy. And so we as parents as well, we have a right to privacy, and we have expectations of how we would like to be treated treated with respect. Don't yell and scream at me. Don't curse at me. Don't call me curse words. Yada yada yada. And it's a two-way street. I mean, there's a fence there, and there's a boundary. There's an invisible line, but boundaries are important because that's how we get along. That's how we get along with one another, and we as parents, we have a roof over our heads, and we're providing food and clothing and education and medical care and free internet and all the things that we provide for our children. And in lieu of that, I think it's normal or expected that as parents that we have a right to boundaries ourselves. And I think sometimes people forget about that, ignore that. When you have teenagers, they're gonna fly over that fence and ignore your boundaries all the time, and you're gonna have to take a taser or a dart gun or something and drive them back onto the other side and get them to recognize that they're doing the wrong thing. But with adult children, ages 30 to 32, 35, whatever, at that point, you should have already established some solid ground rules and solid boundaries that everybody's aware of. And I have heard of parents who have had to create contracts. They write everything down on paper, type it up, email it, whatever, and they get the adult child to read it. And if they have any questions, they can ask questions and get them to sign it. And then they are expected to respect those boundaries.
So in my case, because I don't know if I completely understand adult children, because it sounds like they're living in your home. But for me, like my adult children, this is because my wife and I got married very young. We were 19. So we were kind of just figuring everything out as we went along. So when my oldest daughter had her first child, we were giving her all the advice that we could, but a lot of times our advice came off as instruction. So how does a parent navigate the difference in advising an adult child on how to parent their own children and rather than instruct? So like, we were more or less we were hovering and trying to control how they parented their children.
You were being helicopter parents.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you asked that question. So up until the time that a child is 17-ish, you're very involved in their lives. And you're very active in their day-to-day goings on. Brush your teeth, make your bed, take the trash out, don't poke your sister in the eye, whatever the, day-to-day goings on is and maintaining your household and how they're supposed to act and all of that. But at some point they're going to turn 18 and they're now they're not. I know the word teen is still in the age, right? And so some people would say that an adult child's not until they turn 20. So that needs to kind of be, the child may be 20 physically, but emotionally and intellectually, they may be 13 or 14. So the parent has to assess that. And if the 20-year-old is really only internally a 13, 14, or 15-year-old, then you have to make those adjustments, right? So you can't.
That's our adult.
Yeah.
She's 18, almost 19, and she's mentally and emotionally like 15.
Right.
If younger.
Yeah, maybe.
So to answer Mark's question, up until the point that the child becomes an adult child, you're a parent at that point. You're very involved in their day-to-day happenings, right? And the older they get, hopefully, you're making me dizzy, honey. The older they get, the less you have to interact with them, right? But once they turn a certain age, physically and mentally and emotionally, and they become an adult, a young adult, at that point, you're no longer, quote unquote, a parent, but you're a mentor and you're a support person. In other words, you open up your hands, you open the window, and you go, "Fly, little bird, fly." Metaphorically speaking, right? They may still be living in your house, and that's where boundaries come in, right? Yes, you're an adult. Yes, you still live in my house, and yes, these boundaries are still in effect until you leave, right? But in the case of your child and their child, if you're playing a helicopter parent and interjecting or offering unsolicited advice, then your child is going to probably react that way. They're probably going to go, "Hey, I didn't ask you about that. I didn't ask you for your input. I don't need to hear what you think. This is my child, and I'm going to raise my child the way I want to raise my child." Right? And that's what all parents say. If you're in the grocery store and somebody says, "Well, you really need to shut that child up or buy them a piece of candy or let them have what they want so they'll quit screaming," you're going to go, "Wait, I didn't invite you into this situation. I didn't ask you for your unsolicited advice. That's my child. I'm the parent, and I'll deal with it. Go away, go away, go away, go away." And that's kind of an exaggerated explanation, but it happens all the time. I remember in the 60s and 70s, actually, let's back up. I remember in the 70s and 80s, early 80s, mom and I, or my parents and I, would be at Walmart, and we'd turn a corner, and there'd be a mom or a dad pounding a living crud out of some child's rear end because it was just being unruly and not being courteous or whatever the reason was. It was getting spanked, and we just kept on going. Now you wind up going to jail for child abuse, but that's another story. Anyway, did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. Do you have a question, Anna?
No, our situation's a little difficult just because she doesn't live with us. She lives with my brother and his wife in California. So she's definitely further away from us, and she hasn't lived with us for a while anyways for other reasons. But we're definitely on the outskirts of her life. Not that we don't have a relationship with her, but we don't know what kind of relationship to have with her because like we mentioned, she's emotionally maybe between 13 and 15, but she's going to be 19 and she has no sense of how to take care of money. She doesn't know what she wants to do with her life besides be in a rock band. Like she doesn't have aspirations, so we don't have anything to support. Sometimes she'll ask us for money, and it's like, well, you had a job. If you had kept that job, you'd still have money. We're not going to give you money because we don't know what you're going to use it on. So we're just kind of in this weird limbo or something where we just don't know how to help her. And she doesn't want to be helped. That's the problem.
No, she just wants someone to, right. I don't know what she wants.
Yeah, we don't know what she wants. She isn't sure what she wants. And it's a really hard situation because,
And it's hard to
yeah.
trust her, for
Mhm.
one thing.
Yeah.
But
We can never tell if she's telling us the truth either. So we've put up boundaries for ourselves. Like whenever she does come to visit, we've got boundaries and told her you have to respect these. And she's very good about doing it, at least that we know of. But yeah, so it's just an interesting situation we have.
It sounds as if, and I'm looking from the outside in, so forgive me if I take a misstep here, but it sounds as if she's very rebellious.
bingo. Yeah.
Yep, she's very rebellious. She's got a rebellious spirit, and how old did you say she was? Right. So she's basically feels that she's free, white, and 21, and she can do whatever she wants to. And for all intents and purposes, she's correct. She's an adult, and she has to learn, or she needs to learn how to stand on her own 2 feet and make good decisions about her life choices. And she's not making good life choices. She's making bad life choices. And she's looking for somebody, i.e. the parents or the parental unit, whoever that might be, who be the scapegoat and be the reason why. Well, I'm doing this because of how you treated me when I was 16 years old. You were overbearing and you were a strict parent and you were doing all these things that messed me up, and so therefore that's why I'm screwed up at 19 years of age. Which I will say hogwash. I don't want to hear that. Yeah, yes, parents make mistakes. Yes, we're not perfect, and sometimes we have to be transparent with our children, put them down and go. And I've done this with my children when they were, teenagers, 15, 16, 17 years old. I set them down and said, between the ages of 21 and 26, I was a dumpster fire. And these are some of the stupid things I did. And these are the consequences of my actions. Some of them were ugly. They were bad. If you don't, guess what? You don't pay your car payment, your car gets repoed. You don't pay your light bill, the lights get shut off. If you don't have money for food and you're hungry, guess what? You're hungry. Don't pay your rent, you're under a bridge, unless you have rich parents that can bail you out all the time, which means that they're enabling your bad decisions.
Well, I think
But,
that's what happened, right, with Evangeline. She always had her grandmother and her dad, her biological dad, who calls himself a Christian, did not set the good example for her. And all she's ever wanted was his love. And that love he never gave her. He was like the biggest judgmental person, and he abused her mentally, physically. And I wrote him a nice letter one time, and you think he ever responded back? No. He's just one of those, she could never do anything right. If she did something right, she would come home with, say, a report card that had 9 A's and 1 F. He'd look at that 1 F and be like, you got an F, rather than be like, hey, great job, you got 9 A's, These are always right to the boom, and she's always just wanted her dad's love on her father's side. And she's living her life like the way he lives his life. Because that's how, from what I see, that's how he is. He's a rebel. He thinks he's like on top, like he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, they're a lot alike.
One of the dynamics of family life, obviously, is parents, moms and dads. And of course, in the age that we live, 2026, there are a lot of kids that don't have a mom and dad. They may only have a mom or a grandparent or whatever. But for those kids that do have moms and dads, a lot of times our adult children get screwed up and have emotional problems or psychological problems because mom and dad didn't model the right behavior in front of them and didn't respect them and didn't love them and didn't set boundaries. Loving children, whether they're young or older adult children, loving them doesn't mean letting them have their way. Loving them doesn't mean that they can do or say or go wherever they please, right? That's why we're parents. We are to safeguard them, and we are to have a safe home, and we are to have a refuge that everybody can live safely in and can respect one another and can love one another. And that's what parents are supposed to do, is to train up a child in the way they're supposed to go. We are to Now, I know some of you that are listening to this may not be believers. You may not believe in Jesus. You may not be Christ followers. Or you may be somebody that subscribes to a different religion, and all of that's fine. But I just want to say that what do parents teach their children? We teach them our moral fiber. We teach them right from wrong. We teach them, what is right, what is wrong, the lines that you're not supposed to cross, what's ethical, and why is our religion important to us? Why is it important to not lie and steal? Why is it important to believe in something bigger than you are, i.e. God? And so your situation with your daughter definitely is a outlier or a special relationship, a different type of relationship that many parents may not have to navigate. And ultimately, she's going to have to learn how to fix things. I would highly recommend encouraging her to go to a therapist. She needs to go to a family therapist.
She's been off and
She's
on
been.
several times, and she
The
doesn't
thing-
want to.
Well, the thing is that she puts, I don't know if it's a show, but when she was down in Tennessee living with Donna's dad and his wife Laura, they took her in, and everybody's like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with her because she gave." What do you want to
She's
say?
like her dad and their family. They have a really good facade,
Right.
where you wouldn't think that there was any issues. Her
There's
dad
nothing
had
wrong with her,
major
right.
anger issues that you wouldn't have known unless you wandered into his room and saw where he was punching holes in it. And she's just kind of got that same mentality too, where she can make it look like, I'm good, everything's fine. I don't know why they brought me here.
She doesn't like boundaries, right? She doesn't like structure. We tried to do that here, and that's why I think whether the thing that happened over here, whether she fabricated the story, or if it really did happen, only God knows, and she knows too. But because she wanted her personal space here, which we couldn't give her at that time, but we could have worked something out because we have a small home here, and she just wanted her own bedroom. Yes.
Ultimately, she's going to have to take ownership of her life.
Right.
And she's going to have to quit making excuses. And I'm here to tell you, when I was a dumpster fire between 21 and 26, it's only by God's mercy and grace that I didn't wind up in the hospital or dead or a drug addict or in prison. I was very angry. I was very full of pride. I blamed my parents for everything. And, I'm here to tell you, life is a wonderful teacher. Life is a wonderful teacher. And if you don't get it, life will keep teaching you, and you keep making bad choices, bad decisions. You're going to suffer the consequences of those decisions. And it's something my dad and my parents always taught me as a young child. Think about what you're doing before you do it. If you do A, what's B, C, and D going to look like for you? And they always harped on that. And I didn't understand that until I got much older. But they were correct. You make a bad decision, there's consequences. Now, those consequences may not be life-altering. They may not end your life. They may not put you in a hospital or prison or anything like that. They may not be totally catastrophic to your life. But if you don't make good, solid, sound decisions as a young adult, there's going to be consequences. And there'll be some consequences that mom and dad can be helicopter parents, and they can come in and they can enable them and pay fines and do all these things, move them back into the house and protect them, whatever. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that at some point, the young adult's going to have to take ownership of their life and figure out how to make better decisions. And as you're helping them, if you choose to help them by paying rent, paying a car payment, paying whatever, or bringing them into your home, maybe they're failing horribly and they need to be a boomerang child and move back into your house. While all of that's happening, you have a right to re-educate them and say, this is what's happening to you. Why do you think it's happening? And let them say, well, because I screwed up. And it's okay. Parents need to be there for their children and love them no matter what age they are, to a certain extent, not to enable bad behavior, certainly not to enable bad behavior, because if you're enabling bad behavior, they're never going to learn.
Yeah. If I can bring it back to kind of where I started, where, when we were young and my daughter moved, my youngest daughter, oldest daughter, moved out and we were helicoptering her, we had to get to a point because we realized it was affecting our relationship. We had to get to a point to where we had to come to her and her husband and repent and say, we're we're kind of hovering over you and we're doing it wrong. And, we're here for you. If you need us, just reach out to us. We're more than happy to give you any kind of advice. But we do feel like we're enabling you a little bit, and we want you to kind of figure it out on your own. And today, that daughter calls my wife regularly and asks her questions and advice for her kids because she's got a 14-year-old and a 9-year-old now. And, and I'm listening to how parents have made mistakes and kids struggle sometimes because of the parents' mistakes, but then they got to figure it out on their own. But, you mentioned earlier about God. The awesome thing about God, because I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, because I've turned it over to God and given it all to God, He has found a way to redeem it and make a testimony out of it. So I would encourage any parents listening, okay, you messed up. Your kid is messing up a little bit. But if you start trusting in God and believing in God, and we don't know God's divine plan. We don't know if the child will turn around or not, but still continue to pray and trust and believe, and God can redeem that.
Amen. That's part of a Christian home's family dynamic. And that's something that you can't really start when they're 18 years old. Yeah, sure you can. At some point you got to hit the reset button if you need to, but moms and dads are responsible for instilling instilling faith in their children when they're young. And you can't preach at children and tell them, okay, we got to go to church and we got to go to Bible study. We got to read our Bible before we go to bed and we got to pray. And you're sitting in the living room smoking a joint. That's a radical antidote, but maybe you're the dad that worked all day and you come home and you sit in your recliner and you have the remote control and a Bud Light in your hand all the time. You're not really doing anything wrong per se. You're not harming anybody other than maybe yourself, but you're setting a bad example. And listen, Katie and I, we had 2 teenage kids that it got to the point where I just had to tell them, look, if you're not going to follow the rules of the house, get the hell out. And I regret saying that today. And I could have been a little softer in my delivery. But I mean, they literally were not cleaning their rooms. They were not cleaning the house. They were not taking out the trash. They weren't feeding themselves. We'd work all day long and come home and they'd be like, what's for supper? We'd be working all day. And we're like, what's for supper? We got food. We got hamburger helper. We got sandwich meat. We got cheese. We got all sorts of stuff in the refrigerator and cupboards that you can make to feed yourself. We got to the point where we just started going out to eat dinner. When we get off work, we just go eat and we'd come home and they'd be like, what's for supper? I'm like, I don't know. What are you cooking yourself? And they look at me like I had 3 heads, and they dropped out of high school. Katie and I are both working. Katie's going to school to get her master's degree, to be a teacher and special ed teacher and all the things that she has to maintain to be that kind of a teacher. And so we were, I thought we were a pretty good example of what it's like to be, a working class family that, goes to work, pays the bills, puts food on the table, keeps the lights on. And they love the free internet access and the free food and all of the above, but they didn't want to do anything. They didn't want to take ownership of anything. And I finally got tired of it. And I was like, get out. And they did. Now my son's an attorney. They both went and got their GED. My daughter, who I won't name, she's still struggling. She's not standing on her own 2 feet very well. We've been helping her on and off over the years. My son got his GED, went to a technical college, got his 2-year degree, went to the 4-year College of Charleston. Then he went to a law school in Virginia, and now he's an attorney. And he's doing very well for himself, and he's not 30 yet.
Yeah, he is.
So
Awesome.
is he 30?
He's 30.
How old is he? How old is
He's
he?
30.
He's 30. I thought he said he was 27.
30. He'll be 31.
Okay. How old is Chris? How old is our daughter?
She's 33, gonna be 34.
Okay. So both of our kids are well beyond the adult child definition, right? Katie would know exactly when their birthday was because she gave birth to them.
I do.
Good job.
I
They're
struggle with
exactly
that
3
too,
years
James.
and 2 days apart.
I have 5 kids. Sometimes I get their dates mixed up when people ask, especially because 2 of them were born on the 30th, but in different months.
Oh, wow.
And then 2 of our kids, they have the same birthday, but it's inverted. Like one of them was born 9/4 and the other one was born 4/9.
What?
It's like,
It's
you
kind
guys
of
Be
are
crazy.
confusing.
killing us.
That's confusing.
Yeah.
And with Reese, he's a teenager now, but I just had my moment where I said something where maybe, it was like a little bit, we kind of got like on the drive to school, and he wanted to pretty much tell me to shut up because I was making light of a situation with my best Yoda voice. And he's like, I told you I don't like that. And he told me, whatever he said. And then I said, you know what? You need a good, we just got done watching the movie about St. Patrick. I says, you need a St. Patrick experience. What? You want me to go live in the woods with Brad and get attacked by wolves? And he started unbuckling his thing, and then he tried to was going to open up the door, and I was like, just kept my cool. And I says, no worries, and then he buckled back up, and then I got up probably about less than a quarter of a mile before school, and I was running low on gas, and I pulled into the parking lot. I said, there you go. You wanted to walk to school, you said? You can do it now. He got out. He goes, what? I said, I seen girls walking this road. You're a man enough to spout out. You can go ahead and walk the rest of the way to school. But they don't have backpacks. I was like, no, well, you have a backpack. You can put it on your back and walk.
There you go.
Got him out of the car, and my two girls are all worried. Oh, Mom, what are you doing? Yeah, they were praying for him. He thinks his sisters don't like him, but they love him to death. And they always stick up for him, whether he knows it or not. And they were praying for him.
One of the things that always is an eye opener for us parents is that when we look at our children, we're looking into a mirror of our own. Our children are just like us in a large degree. And so when children are rebellious or insolent or downright disobedient, you'll get little flashes of recognition when you see that. You'll be like, "Well, I don't like that. I don't like that image I see in the mirror," right? So you have to you kind of have to take that into consideration. That doesn't mean that you have to allow them to be stupid or to do stupid
Right. I mean,
things
I can see that with the girls. I mean, like with Reese, because his dad, that's what makes it's so hard when you have like because he's with his dad for like 3 days, Friday, Saturday, comes home Sunday. Sometimes he's there for 4 days during the week. And, so he has a different experience over there. His dad is different, much different from me. I mean, I tried to talk to his dad about something. He said, Keith, I didn't have a child with you. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
That pretty much shut me up. Like, you know what? And that's whatever. I mean, like I had to, whatever. That's just what I was dealing with.
That's called being part of a blended family.
Right. And he just doesn't get it. And so it just made it hard for me on my part. Right. Because of course
they have their own rules when he's there, and then they have your rules when he's with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough.
He's
who
going
suffers?
through a lot, right? Yep. He is.
Yeah, the child suffers.
The
child suffers, and all you can do is just the best you can do with what you've got.
Right. Because he gets away with whatever over there, but over here we may be on him, but over here, vice versa. So I feel, I've always said that, Don. I feel bad for him. It's tough.
I remember a story my dad used to tell me about my mother. And I'm adopted from a military family out of an orphanage in Schaffenburg, Germany. And we were just kids, and we were in the car or whatever. And my dad would tell the story about how my mother, adoptive mother, she was a redhead, a natural redhead, and she was a firecracker. She was something to deal with. Apparently, she had a temper, and they were like, I don't know, 6 or 7 miles outside of Terrell, Texas, we lived in Quinlan, Texas. Terrell was like 30 miles to the southwest of us, or whatever it was. We were north of Terrell. And anyway, Mom and Dad got into an argument about something, and my mom yelled at my dad to stop the car and let her out. And she was like 6 or 7 miles outside of Terrell. You know what he did? He let her out, pulled over, let her open the door, and she got out. He took off, and she walked all the way to wherever it was that they were going, mad as a wet chicken. And he was like, hey, you said to let you out. I just let you out. And she didn't do that no more. She never again did she ask him to stop the car and let her out, which was kind of funny. A funny family story.
No, they were wondering if they needed.
Katie, you're awfully quiet. What about boundaries? Boundaries and adult children. What are your thoughts on that? Mark, you're supposed to be asking probing questions.
Right.
No, sorry.
I think
Go ahead.
you actually start the boundaries when they're younger. That way, as they're growing up, they know the boundaries. I mean, if you tell them that, hey, you don't come into our room when the door's closed and you knock, well, then when they're like 4 or 5, you teach them how to do that, then they know to knock. And as they're growing up, they know the rules already. Yeah, adult children, when they come back, which has only happened a couple times for us when it comes to Christina, she already knew the rules. She knew no smoking in the house. Drinking didn't matter because you both drink, so it's a big deal in that. But at that time, she wasn't old enough to do it, I guess. She knows the rules. She doesn't like our rules, but she would put up with it if she had to. All I can think of.
Do you have older teenagers in your classroom? What's the oldest teenager you have?
14.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are they a handful?
Yes, they
Are
are.
they saying
Tell
6, 7 all the time?
I work with 7th and 8th graders, and they drive me crazy. I don't like 8th graders. I didn't like my own kids when they were 8th grade. I just try not to let them know that, which is hard because and they're all boys. All my 8th graders are. I have one girl that didn't even come to class half the time. I teach resource. It's where they only have a certain amount of minutes they have to come see me. But I mostly have boys, and they try to do all sorts of things on the internet when they're not supposed to. They have certain working work from their other classes they have to do. But instead, they're listening to music when they're not supposed to. They're playing games they're not supposed to. So we always have to check the computer to see what they're doing. It's just I never had so much problems in my life. I've worked at high school before. I never had that much problems with them. But these guys are just off the chain.
Yeah, you can't do anything, I'm sure, because it's, the kids, they come down on the teachers now. If you say anything wrong, that's it, Years
Well,
ago,
you
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 couldn't do
you
anything.
got to figure out what your battles are. What's worth what's worth nowadays because of all the school shootings. We don't allow them to play shooting games. I mean, that's just one of those things. And invariably, somebody's playing one of those games. So when it's like that, I have to report it because it's against computer technology. It's against the policy. So I have to report it. And if I don't, well, then I'm the one that gets in trouble. And I just do not go into the principal's office. So I have to, write them up. And they usually have lunch detention or they have OSS, which is out of school suspension. So they get 2 days off for doing something stupid. So they can go home and do it instead. It's always something.
How many times have you had parent-teacher conferences with teachers, with parents that were off the chain, and then you were like, oh, that's why little Johnny's a squirt, because mommy and daddy don't know how to regulate their emotions.
Yeah, I had one particular parent when I was working at the high school. My gosh, she was just the first day of school of the first year that I was there. I was there for 2 years. The first day, she got upset because her daughter didn't get on the bus right away or something, and her daughter had her on speakerphone, and her mom called me and my assistant a B word. That's what we say on here, but you know what I mean. She called us a whatever. And we're like, I can't believe she did that. Cussing on the phone where we can hear her. So we just knew that it got to the point where she didn't want to come talk to me. And she wanted her daughter to be in somebody else's class instead. I'm like, good riddance. Go right ahead. So she's crazy. Anything else?
You want to wrap this up, James?
I'm going to let you do that. I've sit here and blathered until I'm turning purple. I will say to the listening audience that if you enjoy the conversations that we're having, like with boundaries and adult children and family dynamics and faith and God and religion and all of that, leave us a comment on the video and say, hey, I enjoyed that conversation. And if you'd like for us to talk about other things, be sure to let us know, and we'll be reading those comments, and we'll, on the next episode, we will, maybe we'll address that request.
Yeah, and if you have any advice to give us, we mentioned some of our problems. Everybody has different ways to handle things. If you have any advice, let us know in the comments.
Absolutely.
I haven't heard you talk a lot, Anna. Why don't you summarize it and end it?
We need an outro, Anna.
If you are feeling at the end of your rope with your children, whether they're as young as the one we had on earlier, or the one you may have seen at the door trying to get my attention about something else, or if you're going through the teen years and you feel like dropping your child off somewhere and letting them walk home, you're not alone. We're all, as parents, we're all dealing with difficulties with our children. And like we've mentioned here before, we've made mistakes. We don't always do the right things. You're not perfect. We're not perfect. And it's important to make sure that you are humble enough to apologize. Like Mark mentioned, he did and his wife did for one of their adult children when you've fallen short. It's a good tool for them to see that that's a sign of humility and adulting. So we need to always be willing to be humble enough to realize when we've made our mistakes. And yeah, if you need any guidance further, James has a wonderful adult children podcast. I have honest Christian conversations. I talk a lot about various topics along those lines as well. And Mark has a great channel for men who are wanting to be better equipped to follow God and be the man of God that they were called to be. So we all have something to offer you if you need it. Like James was saying, go in the comments and let us know. Give us topics, give us ideas, let us know what your struggles are so we can be praying for you. And just know that you aren't alone.
Thank you, Anna. And thank you, Keith and Katie, for showing up on the podcast episode for Front Porch Discussions. All right, everybody have a good night. To the listening audience, I'll say thank you for the privilege of your time, and we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
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 Bye.